Hello there, and welcome to Patrick Replies, the show where I, Patrick, reply to your comments and questions about the latest video, and today we are talking about the content episode, the video I have been talking about and threatening to make since like 2019 or so. Look, I've had a long-standing beef with the word content that I'm sure everyone has been well aware of for a long time. Everyone's sick of hearing me talk about it. And so I finally got it all out of my system and made this video. And I think we pulled it off pretty well. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. And today we're gonna talk about it and see what you all had to say. But before we get into that, big news in my world. Earlier today, I finished building this. The Batman Returns Batcave Lego thing. I bought this as a reward for finishing the content episode because that took so long to make. And then I would like build like a piece of it like every day to reward myself for like getting my writing done on the script for the next episode. Anyway, finished the script for the next episode, which is long, and finished building this. And now I don't know where I'm gonna put it because I don't have any shelf space left in my apartment. Shit. As usual, we are going to start with the comments from the YouTube comments section, as selected by Emma Logsdon, our community manager. So we'll see what comments Emma pulled. Hopefully they aren't as rude as last time because with the AI video, some of those were unpleasant. Okay, and our first comment is from celebrated fantasy writer Brandon Sanderson. See, we got big name comments this time. Okay, so Brandon says, "Welp, didn't expect that. Great episode, by the way, Patrick and team. We see this in the book world with Kindle Unlimited and other monthly subscription services, particularly the all-you-can-consume variety. The problem is that once people lock into a subscription to a single platform, we lose them as customers. They stop buying books or films or shows and start buying the service. Platform becomes king, not creator. So the economic incentive is not to bond people to character, theme, narrative, or other artistic ideals, but to a service. I see a short-sightedness to this that most industry suits don't seem to comprehend. I can't help but see analogy in the Silver Age churn of disposable comics, for example, leading to contemporary issues in new reader acquisition for the entire American comics industry. Is there any hope for an advertisement-dependent service like YouTube to head this off? If this is not too long for a Patrick Replies question, sorry about that, what 3 immediate changes would you make to YouTube to counteract all of this if you were put in charge?" Oh, wow. Okay. I do just want to say, to address the fact that celebrated fantasy author Brandon Sanderson is commenting on this, our own Mike Curran, who co-writes the narrative portions of the videos, he wrote the Brandon Sanderson joke where I'm looking at the giant, like the really thick research packet, and I say, "Who wrote this, Brandon Sanderson?" Mike was very insistent. He was like, "Do not cut the Brandon Sanderson joke. I insist you keep it." And I was like, "It's a good joke. I'm not gonna cut it." And then it is very funny to me that it turns out Brandon watches the video. Like, I'm amazed. Brandon is aware of the Patrick Replies videos, so I'm delighted by this, and I was delighted to send a screenshot of this to Mike and be like, "Hey, Mike, your joke had a greater effect than I think you expected." But anyway, to address Brandon's question, I didn't actually really know about the way that this kind of like Netflix-esque or subscription-based thing did exist in the publishing industry. I mean, I guess it makes sense if you have like, an Audible subscription and stuff like that, but I didn't know it went this far. And yeah, I think this, exactly what you described here, is the sort of problem where like Netflix advertises Netflix, not like, the actual stuff made by people on Netflix. And you're right about your comparison to Silver Age comics because, back in the 60s, Marvel would be like, just read Marvel, read all the Marvel books. And the creators were to most readers less important. And so then that's how you kind of get to this point where the comics industry is so dominated by superhero comics. And a lot of readers do, like, once they get into things, like, figure out, like, oh, okay, I'm gonna, I know which, like, writers and artists I like. I'm gonna follow those creators. But a lot of people, they just kind of go by publisher. They go by the larger brand. And, look, there are many problems with the comic book industry, but that's not what we're here to get into. What 3 immediate changes would you make to YouTube to counteract all of this if you were put in charge? That is such an enormous question, and it will haunt me because I probably will not be able to think up a satisfying answer right now. Honestly, this is a question that I would love to ask Dave, because Dave actually studies this industry every day and knows people at YouTube, knows the biggest YouTubers, he's always talking to so many people around the industry. I just sit here in my little bubble making my videos, and I watch so little YouTube, so I can say some things that I'm oh, there's changes I would like that would benefit me. I launched my channel in 2011, and I wish I had started earlier, because in the earlier days of YouTube, when there was not just such an overwhelming quantity of stuff being uploaded every second, the front page of YouTube could actually be human curated and could actually have staff recommendations, and they could actually elevate stuff that was good and help it reach an audience, in the way that Vimeo has staff picks. And so I do wish there was a way for people at YouTube to be elevating good stuff that they think should reach a wider audience. But I also understand why it works the way it does, where, they have the algorithm, they collect so much data, and it's designed to basically help the user see more stuff that they will probably like, because there's just so much stuff on YouTube. So I wouldn't even know how to deal with that. I mean, I would make some changes to things like age restrictions and demonetization and that kind of thing, because that can just get stupid sometimes. The Zack Snyder video got age restricted because I put in a censored 4-second clip of a sex scene from Excalibur, and the rest of the video has so much ultra graphic violence in it, and none of that matters at all. And I'm something's stupid here. This is broken. But to be fair, that's also just American media, where violence is fine, sex is not. So, that's not so much a YouTube problem as just an America problem. But yeah, I don't really have a good answer for this. So the simplest thing I'm just gonna say is I would like it if there was some kind of actual human curation to YouTube to help promote, good stuff that they think should be reaching a wider audience. And yes, that is selfish, because I'm just I would like it if YouTube would be hey, more people watch Patrick Willems. You might enjoy it. Oh yeah, here's a change that I'd like YouTube to make. Stop using the word content so much. There's also a thing, and I don't really know how YouTube itself addresses this, but I know it also applies to, various internet award shows like the Streamies and stuff like that, but it bugs me that they never seem to recognize individual videos. They just recognize channels or creators, and thus devaluing the individual works, and really just kind of celebrating the endless stream of content. And so I would like some way to just make special individual videos matter and seem meaningful, not just are you making more and more all the time? But I don't know, this is so complicated. So Brandon, thank you so much for your question, and I'm sorry that I do not have good answers. Next up, at NL Jason says, calling everything on the internet content is purposely referring to any living thing as flesh. Arguably accurate, but horrific when thinking about the industries that sell them. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that. There you go. Content. The flesh of the internet. Claudia Hortensia says, when Patrick said there's another crotchety old man who agrees with me, I was totally expecting for it to instantly cut to a completely unscripted Patrick's dad rant. I'm sorry, no Hank Willems monologues in this one, but there is a Hank Willems appearance, so I gave you something. That said, I can't say I'm at all disappointed that instead it was Martin Scorsese's head floating in the air, surrounded by pink hearts. First of all, same. And secondly, as a member of your apparently very small female audience, I am totally in favor of the inclusion of floating pink hearts in your videos, especially when they are used to compliment Martin Scorsese. Thank you. I am very happy with the image of Marty with his floating head and the pink hearts. I think that was Jake's idea to add the pink hearts around him. But yeah, you know, we all love Marty. And if you don't, what's wrong with you? Also, I just want to say, because I did draw attention in the video to the fact that, you know, according to my analytics, the channel's audience is 90% male. I am always very glad whenever someone makes a point of being like, I am a member of your 10% female audience. I hope one day we can maybe have those numbers. I don't think it'll ever be 50-50, but maybe, man, I would love it if it were even just like 80-20. I totally understand why, for many women, they'll go on YouTube, click on a video and be like, ugh, there's another white man with glasses talking about movies. I don't need more of that, and they close the page. I get it. I totally get it. I am sympathetic to that. But I would also like to think that, you know, this channel is a little more welcoming and a little, you know, more broadly appealing than other channels with white men with glasses talking about movies. So tell your wives and girlfriends and sisters, tell your moms to check out the Patrick H. Willems channel. Maybe they'll like it. Maybe, I don't know. Brian Barrett says, reminds me of the push among artists to replace the term motion capture with the more appreciative performance capture, and I would say that there is a big difference between the two. That is a good point. Yeah, this is, you know, when talking about like VFX stuff, motion capture was what, you know, was originally referred to that whole kind of thing. And to be fair, like the earlier days of the technology, if you go to like, you know, like Andy Serkis playing Gollum in Lord of the Rings, that was before they had any stuff on his face to like digitally record his face. That was literally just getting the motion of just his body, and then basically animating all of the rest from reference footage. That said, you know, they're still getting the physical performance of what his body is doing. So yeah, I think performance capture is a good, better term, and I feel like it's caught on, and so maybe using any other word but content will also catch on. Probably not. I'm not optimistic, but we'll see. Okay, James Lawner says, I love the teases at the end telling what the next video is going to be. It's like looking into the bottom of a Happy Meal box and seeing the little pamphlet that tells you what next month's toys are going to be. Look, I haven't bought a Happy Meal in a long time, like since the 90s, I think. I don't know if I ever knew that they told you at the bottom of the box what next month's toy was going to be. Wow. Oh my God, what a stupid child I was. But I will say, as for the teases at the end of each episode, yeah, I think they're fun, and we have fun with how we transition into them, but I'm constantly amazed how many people are still not aware that at the end of each episode, we announce the next one. Like, I'll see people, especially in like my Letterboxd comments, seeing me watching movies and being like, ooh, does this mean that the next episode is gonna be about this? And I'm like, no, I told you what it is already. You don't need to speculate about it. It's like public information. But I think a lot of people just turn it off at the ad read, and so they miss the fun ending to the episode, and that is their loss. Moving on. Avrillairs says, I've been thinking a lot during this strike about how Quentin Tarantino was able to get his start because he appeared in the background of a Golden Girls episode. He played an Elvis impersonator, it's very fun, that ended up being used in one of the show's clip show episodes. Because he showed up in reruns of 2 episodes for years, he was able to save up enough money to fund his real dream and become a filmmaker. There are certainly other people like him right now, actors appearing in small background parts in popular shows who, if given the chance, could become some of our greatest contemporary artists, but we'll never get to see the work they would have made. We'll never fully understand what we're losing as a culture right now. That is a great point. And hey, if any AMPTP people are watching this right now, they probably aren't, but in case they are, just think, the next Quentin Tarantino could be out there, making a living, doing background roles on TV shows, but because you're not paying proper residuals for streaming shows, they're not getting a proper income, and they're not going to be able to fund their indie movies that'll potentially launch a big lucrative career. So, come on. Agree to the demands, sign the deal, end the strike. Seriously. All right, Treetop Canopy says, a similar problem exists with the term IP. If you mean world setting, characters, franchise, series, etc., just say that. But calling it intellectual property, or just property, is both vague and overly corporate. That is also a really good point. We're going to talk in the next episode a lot more about IP, intellectual property, and all of that. It's very weird to me, not just with content, but how widely used IP has become just among like regular people when, they're just talking about like movies and franchises and stuff like that. And they're just casually using IP as if they are like a studio executive. It's just weird. It's one of those terms that like fans never used before. And this is part of a larger trend that's happened in the past 15 years that is just so strange to me, in that how much regular people, just like normal movie fans, not obsessive ones, but just like normal people who watch movies, know the names of the people running the studios and all the people behind the scenes and that kind of thing. And that never used to be the case. No one cared who was running Paramount or Disney or whatever. But it's just this whole thing of like movies, and specifically franchise movies, really becoming like sports to people. And so they study like who's running stuff behind the scenes like it's a sports team. And it's weird. It's weird. Yeah, I don't like it. And also just calling a thing that like, humans created, like intellectual property, like it's just, yeah, it's all gross. Jera Wizard says, regarding the gender statistics of your channel, questions I've asked myself and haven't found the answers to. If a user doesn't select a gender in their profile, does it default to male for the stats? And if a user selects a non-binary gender in their profile, as I have, does it default to male? If you can find the answer to those where I could not, that would be incredible and might provide some insight toward the skew. I have wondered the same exact thing for years, and I do not have an answer. I would hope that it doesn't default to male. That would be dumb and shitty. But also, look, there is a very good chance that that the analytics are true, and that my audience is 90% male, 10% female. That's quite possible. I have no idea what percentage of my audience is non-binary. It does not tell me that. The analytics are not that good. So yeah, I don't know. I wish I had a better answer for you. Ian Zynia says, I'm a VFX artist on the vendor side. We've had to take a 15% pay cut due to strikes. I still 100% support the actors and writers, and I hope they get everything they are asking for. I also see an opportunity for solidarity, as AI actors would require VFX artists to create and composite into footage. We can be the last bulwark. Yeah, God, I really hope that none of you VFX artists ever have to deal with compositing AI actors, because that sounds miserable. I mean, look, Ian, you know what you're talking about, because famously, the like VFX artists in the film and TV industries are some of the worst treated and most exploited people who work in this whole industry. And look, as we mentioned in the content episode, like recently some groups of VFX artists are trying to unionize, which would be fantastic. Because look, I think that the WGA and SAG strikes are going to work out for the writers and actors, because what they're asking for is so reasonable. Like every person, like the entire public is on their side, and the studios are just like, they're just gonna lose so much money if they don't eventually give into this. But so when those work out, it would be really great if this kind of like started tipping over dominoes and leading to better deals for everybody, because look, read any of the reports about like the working conditions among VFX artists in terms of like having to underbid on projects, the like insane shit they put up with, the insane hours they work. If these strikes could start benefiting like everyone who works on movies and TV shows, that would be really, really great. So fingers crossed. Joe Brady says, "Hi Patrick, just wanted to say I saw your 1989 Batwing Lego set mounted on your wall in the most recent Patrick Replies video, which have been a great addition to your repertoire, by the way. Thank you. Hope you're watching this one right now. And I'm happy to see you were able to display yours. It was so much bigger than I expected that I had to sell it once I finished it. Oh no. And I've missed it ever since." So yeah, as far as the Lego Batwing goes, there it is, right there. You can see part of it. So when it comes to Legos, I love building Legos. I just showed you I built the giant Batman Returns Batcave. I have very strict rules about what Lego sets I let myself buy and how often I let myself buy them. And I would not have bought that Batwing if they had not advertised that it is designed to hang on a wall like that. Because if that thing had to sit flat, I wouldn't be able to put it anywhere. It is way too wide to fit on a shelf. But here, it's nice and flush against the wall, all taken care of. You know, it's out of the way. It works great. Unlike this Batcave, where, I don't know where I'm gonna put it. Anyway, Joe says, "I've been a longtime fan, and it's been a pleasure to see your writing do nothing but consistently improve. Thank you. Sometimes I wonder if it's getting worse, so at least one person does not think so. Thanks for all your hard work and fighting the good fight for Mask of the Phantasm." Joe, thank you so much. Thank you for watching. And Mask of the Phantasm, the 4K, is coming out soon. Can't wait. Stefan says, "How do you feel about the word franchise?" I've seen this brought up before in terms of the gross corporate words that have become commonplace that we don't like IP. I'm going to admit, I don't really mind franchise. I think because it has been so commonly used for so many decades, and it actually is the most descriptive term in some instances. Like, for instance, if you're talking about Star Wars is a series of movies, but it's also a whole lot of TV shows. It's also books and comic books and theme parks and an infinite amount of merchandise. And I think encompassing all of that, franchise is accurate. But let's say I'm talking about Friday the 13th, the movie series. I probably wouldn't say franchise for that since it's pretty much just the movie series. I know you can say oh, there's a video game or whatever, but it's really just, you're referring to the movie series. So I'd call that a series. And Star Wars is a franchise that has series in it. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Anyway, so yeah, I don't really mind the word franchise. I'm sorry if I have disappointed anyone. Jim L says, "Is the voice reading Bill Gates' essay the guy from Extra Credits?" Yes, that is Matt Kroll from Extra Credits. See, he had voiced Bill Gates in a Low Spec Gamer video, and I was like, well, we gotta have consistency across the channels. So Matt, you gotta come in and voice Bill Gates again. And then I got Alex from Low Spec Gamer to voice Guillermo del Toro. I mean, look, we're all buddies. We're all on Nebula, We like collaborating, crossing over. We love synergy. Okay, Ike Okereke News, I'm definitely mispronounced that, I'm sorry, says, "This might be a question of a Replies episode," well, that's why we're here, "but would you say that the contentification of media/art is affecting different mediums differently? I think that the book/publishing industry has largely not seen this trend develop, despite its severe problems." So this is actually interesting because I would normally agree with you, but then there was Brandon Sanderson's question at the beginning of this whole video, where he says that it is because of subscription services for books that I wasn't even really aware was a thing. So I guess it is affecting that as well. But I would say, just from my own observations, the contentification of art isn't affecting books and publishing to the same degree, because in books and publishing, they are so reliant on the individual authors. In movies and TV, and especially with streaming, the studios are constantly trying to like just diminish the role of the artists making these things. Like if they could, they would just have like an AI generate them all. Like they want just like a factory system to like pump this stuff out and reduce the human element. But the majority of books are written by one single author writing on their own. Like if you look at the cover of most books, the author's name is bigger than the title. And so it's hard to treat this stuff as content or like, prioritize the brand when the author is so important and the author is like what people are fans of. And so I think that's really the important thing. I wish, everyone watching movies, cared about the director as much, but that's just not the way it is. Camillo Vidani says, I understand what you are saying, but is it really a new mindset or did it just spread to film? Did cable executives think much differently in this context? Honest question, I wouldn't know the answer, but they were also selling package subscriptions that had to be filled and often relied on quantity or convenience over quality. Okay, so obviously all executives, from like the whole history of entertainment, whether movies or television or whatever, they have always cared about, earning a profit and the bottom line and all of that. These are not saint-like patrons of the arts who just live to fund great works of art. No, like this has always been a capitalist system. But I do think when it comes to, let's say, people running TV networks, that their motivations were different than people, let's say, running streaming services. Because the way TV traditionally worked is that if you've got like a major network, ABC, NBC, one of those, you only have so many blocks of time for programming, and you want to make money. And the best way to make money is by greenlighting shows to air at these certain times that you think have the potential to become incredibly popular with a ton of people. Because then the more people watching the shows, the more you can charge companies to run commercials during those shows. And that's the way it always worked. And the thing is, a lot of the time, those shows that would become very popular and thus very profitable would also be good shows. And so they were actually trying to greenlight things that would be good in the hope that they would then become very popular. Like what I was saying in the content episode, the individual works, the shows, the movies, used to matter. And now with content and streaming, everything is just all dumped there together. And it's just like, I don't know, there's probably something you'll enjoy in there. Maybe some of it is good, but just find it on your own. Loza4? Lozive? I don't know what it is, I'm sorry. Patrick, you don't have to put in all those title cards and stuff and extra things, but I'm glad you do. It is one of the reasons I love your videos so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you saying that, and I love to hear this kind of thing, because one of my general policies when it comes to running this channel is that I will always make sure we put in way more effort than is actually necessary, because I think it matters in the final product, and I do believe that there are some people out there, not most of the people, but some people watching who will recognize that extra effort and appreciate it. And so whatever your username is, thank you very much. Actual Not a Newbie says, why don't web series exist in the US anymore? Ooh, there is a question. So yeah, for you younger viewers, you may not be aware of the time in the earlier days of YouTube. We're talking 2007 up through 2014, 15, maybe up to 2016, maybe. But during about that decade, people were making web series, these serialized, independently produced, really low budget series with 5-minute episodes. I made web series back then, and it was a fun new kind of mini TV show with low production values, but they were fun and endearing. This is also the time when there was a lot more just narrative stuff made on YouTube, whether like comedy sketches or short films and stuff like that. This was also during the era when like, Funny or Die or College Humor were again producing narrative scripted stuff. It was a very different era. And then I think a few things happened. First, there was Vine, which kind of took like, narrative or scripted short form comedy, but it condensed it so much. So some of like the longer stuff on YouTube kind of seemed like unnecessarily flabby now that like Vine was making it so condensed. But then also a big thing was that there was a period, I think around 2014, 2015, when a lot of companies started launching these like short form streaming services, like usually like mobile based, kind of the precursors to Quibi. Things like Go90 and Full Screen TV and CISO, and basically they would just start hiring all of the people who were making like web series and were making scripted narrative stuff on YouTube and were giving them budgets to make original stuff for these apps. And then all of those apps failed and they all collapsed. That was a big part of what killed web series. Also, platforms like Netflix then just started throwing like TV shows at everyone. And then of course like YouTube itself just did kind of evolve away from that and lean more into like, there was the rise of daily vlogging. Podcasts kind of became a thing on YouTube. I think web series really flourished on YouTube when there was like the 10-minute limit for how long a video could be. And so they had to be short. But yeah, web series were fun. And I will say that back in 2015, during the era when, like right after the Wes Anderson X-Men came out, and I was like having all these meetings at places and like developing projects, we, as in Jake and Mike, really did the bulk of the writing, but we developed and wrote this, I think, 6-episode web series, and the scripts are like, like 6 or 7 pages each. It's short, but it is so funny. I think it's the funniest thing they ever wrote, and I would love to make it. But it's now a thing that's written for like a medium that doesn't exist anymore. So anyway, if anyone wants to fund a very silly web series, you know how to reach me. Okay, Sam Lawrence says, fun episode. I'd happily talk to you at a party about this issue. I'm glad. Most people wouldn't. You also see this with music. Although Spotify pays residuals, many people dispute the effectiveness of the current payment model. Everything is algorithm-based, and the limited curation that occurs, selected playlists, only encourages bottlenecking of creativity into something that will place a song onto those playlists. And other playlists, such as shower music or whatever, limits the value of the music being created to a product for a specific task or mood. However, for many musicians, this is the only option available, as they know physical and digital sales will be negligible if a fan can just listen to their music for free instead. How do you think a residual scheme on something like Netflix would avoid the same pitfalls? Ooh, that is an interesting question, and one that I am not sure I am super qualified to answer, because again, I do not have like any kind of business degree, and I do not know exactly how residuals work. I understand what they are and like, the basic logic behind them, but I have never received residuals. But yeah, talking about music, obviously it's like a fact that streaming affected music and the music industry more than any other medium. It like fundamentally, radically changed it forever. In a way where it's easier to find music as like a listener or a consumer than it ever was before, but it is bad for musicians. But as far as a residual scheme on something like Netflix, the biggest difference between Netflix and Spotify is anyone can put their music on Spotify. Brian Matolius's music for this show, it's on Spotify. He just, goes to DistroKid and releases it there. But Netflix is a studio. Netflix is deciding what they make. Netflix is not a public platform in the same way. Like, Spotify is honestly closer to YouTube. Netflix is still a studio. They choose what they make. They have their budgets and stuff like that. And so I think it's much simpler where if Netflix is going to either license an existing show, like one that was made by someone else, like Breaking Bad or something like that, or if they're producing a new show or a new movie, they should then be prepared to compensate the people who made that thing, whenever people are watching it. I think it's that simple. All of the Points says, how do you get your videos to look so good? Do you spend a lot of time color grading or what? I think it might have been the previous Replies episode where I did break down how I get the look of like the narrative scenes or the essay portions. And it is pretty simple, but a lot of it is just lighting. I know the look that I want to get. I light it like that. Mike Worth, who runs the studio at the Nebula offices, he and I work together on that. And now, especially for the essay stuff, we just know exactly what the lighting setup is, so he could have it set up before I show up to shoot. And so yeah, we know the look and we light it like that. I shoot it on a Sony a7S III in S-Log 3, and that has 10-bit color. Shooting in log, it gives us a lot of information to dial in the exact look in post-production. But color grading doesn't actually take that long. I just do it using Lumetri Color in Adobe Premiere. I don't even use DaVinci Resolve or anything. I have a small collection of LUTs that I use for the grading. I usually have one LUT that I use for all the narrative stuff, one for the essay stuff, and that's really kind of it. The narrative stuff, I do put digital film grain on it to make it look a little bit more filmy. And in the content episode, for some segments of that, we did go a little bit harder on the look, specifically this part, the black and white part, where I tried to do my best impression of Robert Richardson cinematography in JFK. Also for this, I did have a 1-strength Tiffin Black Pro Mist filter on it to get a crazier bloom on the highlights. These are always fun opportunities to kind of experiment with cinematography and stuff like that. And yeah, I just, I want the show to look good. Scott Bayetti says, hi Patrick, I'm wondering if you could react to the term media. How do you feel about your videos being referred to as media? Obviously, content is a term on a completely different level, as you so clearly demonstrate with this video, but another term that is a catch-all is media. It could describe newspapers, cinema, TV, and more, and media as a term, it has been around for longer than content. NPR, WNYC have their radio show podcast On the Media, where they report on current events happening in various domains. Media is also the plural of medium, so it starts to confound the McLuhan definition of content, where a medium is the container for content. Yeah, I'm just generally fine, with media as a catch-all term. I don't think anyone is ever gonna say oh, that Patrick Willems video is a piece of media. But if you wanna say that, then that's totally fine with me. My real issue with content is by calling a thing, a work, a video, a piece of art, whatever, by calling a thing content, you are implying that its purpose is to fill a space in a container that is probably owned by someone else. And that's what I don't like about it. Media, to me, does not do the same thing. It just, it just means it's a piece of media. And so, when it comes to broad technical terms for this kind of thing, I think it's fine. Media, thumbs up. Yep, no objections. OS Intet, I can never pronounce these, says, in my opinion, content is a reframing of the relationship between people who create stuff and people who make money on the backs of those people. It is restating the relationship as if the platform, the studio, the music label, the publisher, they're the ones that matter and their huge profits are justified on those grounds, while downplaying the value of the people actually doing the work of creating stuff the audience wants. It's awful. I agree. I think I might be talking myself into deleting my YouTube account, blocking it at the firewall, and subscribing to Nebula. But I don't understand its business model. What is the long-term plan there? Are they stable? Are they just floating on VC money and hoping to grow into the next Netflix? Or are they, and the creators they support, already profitable today? And finally, how many subscribers would you need on Nebula to justify deleting your YouTube channel? Okay, so Nebula. I talk about it a lot in the videos. It's a great platform that I have been involved with since the very beginning. If you can afford it, I do encourage everyone to sign up. Right now, just for the month of September, Nebula is offering lifetime subscriptions. If that's the thing that is interesting to you. As far as like understanding what the goals and business model of Nebula are, really the best place to get an answer for that is to watch the video that Wendover Productions made this summer, like explaining the whole history of it and how it works and how we got it to where it is now. Because Sam from Wendover has, been there since before I have, and he really like knows what he's talking about, and that really kind of breaks it all down. So to address a few of the things you asked about, Nebula is not taking VC money. Nebula is profitable. It has grown far faster than any of us expected, and has turned out to be very successful. So we're all very happy about that. And as far as like what the goals for it are, Nebula is not intended to be like a YouTube replacement. It's something that kind of sits nicely alongside YouTube. So like if you like a creator on YouTube, then you can go to Nebula and follow them there and get like a better, deeper experience. Like there are no ads, there's bonus stuff, and then there's all the exclusive original productions that we're making, and we're actually like going harder on the original productions. That's part of why we're offering the lifetime subscription thing, which is really like, and we're being very clear about it. With the lifetime subscription, it's not actually the best deal you can get. The best deal is actually if you sign up for the annual subscription with a creator code. The lifetime subscription is really just if you, for one thing, never want to deal with like renewing your subscription again, you just want to pay once and forget about it forever. But also the money from this is just going straight into funding the new original productions that we're working on. So really it's just like, yeah, if you want to support what we're doing because we don't want to take VC money. And the kind of thing that we want to keep doing is just making it a place where creators can make the stuff that they're passionate about that they, just wouldn't be able to on YouTube. Like honestly, Night of the Coconut is kind of the perfect example where that would not have made sense on YouTube. But it's also like, okay, I talk about filmmaking. There's like a filmmaking component to my videos. And so like if you're invested in like the regular channel and you want to see me do some actual filmmaking and get some funding to make a more ambitious project, then like, Nebula is the place for that. And to answer your last question, how many subscribers would you need on Nebula to justify deleting your YouTube channel? I don't actually have an answer for that because, first of all, Nebula doesn't have view counts. It doesn't have subscriber counts. It is more like Netflix than it is like YouTube. So like you can follow a channel on Nebula in the way that you can like follow an artist on Spotify, so you're notified if they like release a new thing. But I don't see how many people follow me on Nebula. As much as there's things I don't like about YouTube as a platform, I don't think I would ever delete my channel here because the fact is that YouTube is still and probably will always be the best way to reach a wide audience, and so it just makes sense to have. So yeah, those are my feelings on it. But I assure you, yeah, Nebula's doing great. If you want to sign up, I think it'll be worth your while. I mean, look, the new Jetlag season is out, and you get the episodes a week early. So what more do you need to know? All right, and that is it for the comments from the YouTube comment section. It is now on to the questions from our Discord server, the Ask Patrick channel. As I mentioned in every episode, the Discord server is available exclusively to members of the Patreon. So if you want to join the Patreon to support the channel, you get access to our Discord server, which is just a fun place where, people hang out and talk about movies and stuff like that. And also, there's a channel where you can submit questions that I will answer in these videos. So let's see what we've got today. Shrimp says, "Hey Patrick, I have a semi-related question to your content video. I was wondering what your thoughts are on the pretty unfair TMDB submission rules. Successful TMDB submissions will appear on Letterboxd for anybody to review, as Letterboxd gets their movie info from TMDB, basically allowing filmmakers to get criticism from friends or people who watched their film. Every time that extremely small filmmakers, like myself, self-submit our movies or short films, they usually stay up for a day or two before being removed for breaking the code of conduct, just for being amateur YouTube videos and not films, despite clearly having elements of short films or feature films. They say we need our movies to be physically screened or put onto a streaming service to be allowed to stay up. Is YouTube not a streaming service? You can technically buy or rent movies on there. The mods are just boiling our DIY movies down as amateur content, and it's disheartening to small filmmakers, especially unconventional small art house directors like myself, who film weird short films on a smartphone, and it just gets shrugged off as content and not a short film. Sorry for the extended rant in my question. I'm also passionate about the topic. So I'm going to admit I did not know about these rules. I've never actually used TMDB, which is, kind of like an alternative to IMDb. I know that's what Letterboxd runs through, but like, for instance, my only real experience with this is with Night of the Coconut, which other people put on TMDB and then it ended up on Letterboxd. I understand your frustration, but to be honest, this sounds a lot like the rules that film festivals tend to have, where to submit something to a film festival, it can't be available on YouTube. It has to be usually like behind a paywall of some kind, because I feel like from their perspective, whether Letterboxd or TMDB or whatever, if they really open up their submission process so like any YouTube video could be submitted, then they're just gonna be like flooded with like thousands or millions of just like any YouTube video. Basically, I think they're requiring whatever the movie is, it has to have like been kind of like verified or validated by some other entity, whether probably like a film festival or some other streaming service or whatever, or if it's behind a paywall, that's always helpful. And so I get your frustration. I also get why they have these rules in place. So yeah, I would reach out to Letterboxd about it. Ask them like what their requirements are. Do they just have to, like, if it screens at a film festival and then it's on Vimeo, does that then qualify it? I don't know, but they would probably have answers to those questions. President Scroob says, "Hi Patrick, has your relationship with the word content changed over the years? I've been listening to your back catalog of Can't Get Enough of Keanu, and since I knew that this episode was upcoming, I noticed that in the podcast you somewhat regularly make references to it using the C word. It's pretty clearly a self-deprecating joke, but it made me wonder if you formerly thought it was a more innocent trend than you now view it as being. Was there any sort of epiphany moment where you turned a corner on the subject?" No, I don't think there was an epiphany moment. I always disliked the word content being used to talk about like creative work, but I think the more time went on, and the more I thought about it, I became increasingly annoyed about it over the years, which is like why I finally reached a breaking point where I was like, okay, I've got to make the video. But yeah, I think also part of why I chilled out a bit about using content like jokingly is that I knew this video was coming along, and I also know that people on the internet are often very bad at understanding when someone is joking, and I didn't want to run into people being like, hey, why are you so mad about the word content now, but then you said you called like your podcast content like 3 years ago. And so I'm just like, let's just like let's do it a little bit less. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Dr. Bravo 2 says, "Hi Patrick, there was clearly some thought put into the wardrobe changes in the content video. What were some of the reasons behind your clothes, particularly the Patrick, your blank sucks section?" Okay, we're talking clothing. So yeah, there was some thought put into the outfits, so I'll try to break it down here. So at the beginning, I'm wearing an Oxford shirt, but with the sleeves rolled up, no jacket. And the vibe I kind of wanted there was as if like, okay, maybe he's been up late, like working really intensely. He's a professional, but like, sleeves are rolled up, he's gonna get his hands dirty. Like kind of the vibe of like Steve Karnacki on like election night. You know, that kind of thing. It's like, okay, professional guy, but like he's like working intensely. It's a late night. And he's going to talk about his findings, that kind of vibe. Then for the history of content part, with the whiteboard, tweed blazer on for that to be a bit more like teacher professor vibes. And then the philosophy of content part. In the script originally, this was described as like, it was supposed to look a bit more like a Steve Jobs Apple keynote presentation. And we didn't fully go with that look for the overall thing. Like, it was darker and moodier than any Steve Jobs keynote ever was. But for the outfit, I deliberately tried to do like a Patrick riff on the Steve Jobs outfit. I had like the Levi's jeans and the turtleneck, except it's a striped turtleneck. So that was the thinking there. I did also just think, like, even removed from like the Steve Jobs thing, going into the philosophy part and then having a turtleneck, you know, is just funny. And then the last part, the black and white one, this one right here with our really extreme lighting. For this, really, I knew I wanted this lighting setup, and so I wanted to have a white shirt. So that the like we could have the really hard, like bright highlights like popping off of the shirt. And for this one, guy who has spent many weeks of sleepless nights researching a thing, and now he's rolling in, probably without showering or getting a full night's sleep, to like tell you what he's discovered. That's the vibe. As for my outfit in the Patrick, your work sucks part, that originally, the plan was to have a montage of other people saying those lines to me, to just cut to like a different person for each one. And then like we were so close to the end of the video, and I was just like, oh God, who am I gonna ask to do this? It can't be people who are like, you know, canonically in the rest of the show, or like, do I get other creators to do it? And it was just becoming a headache trying to figure out like who to ask to do cameos. And so finally I was just like, you know what, I'll just do it myself. I'll light it differently and I'll dress differently from the rest of the video just to give it a different vibe. And I was literally just wearing that shirt that day. Just the like, you know, the like, you know, like flower patterned like short sleeve button down. Yeah, I was literally just wearing that shirt at the time. And I was like, I don't know, I'll throw on a baseball cap just to give it an extra different vibe. That was all it was. It was literally just like, I would look down and I was like, oh yeah, this will work. There's no better explanation than that. Jack Slack says, Dear Dr. Willems, is Tom Cruise's hair or his running more important to his artistic and commercial success? Great question. Really, I would say, I think it's the combination of the two. I think it is his hair while in motion while he is running. But if I have to pick one of the two, I'm going to say his hair, because during the 80s, the decade where he really like became a huge movie star, he didn't run that much in that decade. Obviously, like, you know, he ran a bit, but like Top Gun, no running. So yeah, the running really didn't become a thing until the 90s. And so yeah, I think the hair came first. Lucas! Exclamation point, says, for the hair video, production question. If you started off by making a tier list, why did you continue to evolve it into a stack rank? So I always knew that I wanted it to be a stack rank. I always knew that I wanted it ranked number 44 through number 1. I think it's just more satisfying that way. The thing is though, when you've got 44 different movies spread out there in front of you, it's just disorienting. There's so much there, and it's just like hard to figure out like what you're doing. So I did the tier list really just to organize the data, just so I could be like, okay, cool. So we have like the C tier here. There's 6 movies, great. I'll just rank those. And then just kind of move my way through. So yeah, the tier list really, it was just a way to organize things and deal with like a really vast collection of data, and it made it easier. So yeah, that's it. Shadow Earthshaker says, not a question to the content episode yet, but definitely one for the Tom Cruise video. Now that you've given the man's hair the honor it deserves, don't you think a ranking every Tom Cruise run video should be next? After all, the man has been running in movies since 1981. That is a good point and a good question. What I get tripped up on, though, is the movies where he runs multiple times. Like for instance, how do you deal with Minority Report? A movie where he is a fugitive and on the run for the whole movie. Which specific scene of him running do you pick? I don't know. It gets confusing. Like, there's the obvious ones, like Mission Impossible 3, 4, 6, and 7, which probably are like the best cruise running. The Firm has great running. But then there's other ones where it's like he runs in like one shot. Like, I think there's like 2 shots in Jerry Maguire, like separate scenes where he runs. And so I don't know. I feel like that ranking could get tough because it could just lead to like way too many entries and it could get boring. Or if I just maybe have to narrow it down to 1 per movie, I don't know. Tell me what you think would be the best way to organize that, because look, I would gladly talk about Tom Cruise running for hours. Jack Slack, back again, says, do you think that the favoring of terms like content creator and YouTuber, with their emphasis on commercial output and vehicle, are favored because they emphasize willingness to collaborate for financial gain? Are terms like filmmaker and documentarian resisted because they emphasize the art being created, thereby implying a sense of self-importance? Maybe I'm missing counterexamples. Video essayist is a good counterexample, but it sure feels like all the favored terms are those of commerce, while the resisted terms are all those of art. I think it's actually simpler than that, in that terms like content creator and YouTuber really came about because people just wanted new terms to separate the new media from the old media, where it's like, okay, being a YouTuber, doing a thing where like you're making videos like entirely on your own, like filming in your house or whatever, and doing the editing, being the on-camera talent, all of that, it just felt very different than like, when we hear like filmmaker or documentarian, we imagine like a whole crew of people, like a big production. But yeah, I think these terms really just came about to describe what really felt like a new model for working and a new kind of job that is different from the more established ones before. So I think that's it. DevDan says, another great video. I just wanted to flag the use of the word content is not just isolated to art. I work in the media, and for years now, news itself has been branded as content. So much so that job titles have been changed. Where we once had news editors, we now have content editors, for instance. So a months-long investigation into, say, local government corruption is measured in the same way by bosses as a story based on a handful of tweets complaining about the latest Star Wars TV show. I believe this contentization of news and/or information has huge ramifications for society as a whole, the impact of which will probably only become more apparent as we go on. DevDan, I am totally with you. You are speaking my language, and I think it sucks. I think it sucks, but yeah, I hate it. I hate it. I don't know what else to say other than I mean the contentization of everything is bad. It's bad for art and media, for humans, society. Yeah, I think it sucks. And wow, is that that's the last one. I mean, even though this wasn't like a combative Q&A, like the AI one was, it still was a little depressing. I wish I had more answers about how to solve all these problems, but I don't. Really, all I know how to do is like make videos where I hope that maybe a few more people will watch them and be like, oh, maybe this is not a great thing. And then, I don't know, maybe someone will watch the video and they'll have an idea about how to fix things. I don't know. All right, and so that does it for another Q&A video. I don't know if you can see it on the screen there, but I am so sweaty because we've had another heat wave here in New York. It's September, and yet another heat wave in the 90s. Every day it sucks, and yeah, all the ice in my Aperol Spritz has pretty much melted while I've been shooting this. So I'm gonna go back to the living room where there's air conditioning, and I'm gonna cool off and make dinner. Anyway, this was lovely. As always, thank you so much for sending in all the great comments and questions. As always, a lot of these comments are like smarter and better worded than the actual like video essay that I wrote. So great job. You guys should clearly be making the videos. There was no physical mail for me to open in this episode, but if you want to send stuff for me to open in a replies video, you can send it to the P.O. Box. The address is down there in the video description. And that is all for now. We are shooting the next episode in a couple days, and I think it's going to be a fun one. Also, a long one. There's a lot to cover in that one. All right, I'm exhausted and I'm like drenched in sweat. That is it for now. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.